Hey guys, this is TV Siblings Podcast for Mr. Robot. This is Sid.
This is Swetha. Oh my god. What the hell was that?
And Harini will be unavailable for these last two podcasts, but I'm sure she would have a similar reaction. I don't think she's watched yet, but yeah, this was a crazy episode, especially like the last, 30 minutes where I don't even know what to say. Speechless. So many different things happened. Let's get some reaction. Well, I guess we got to give our reactions. Let's jump into the recap.
And before we get started, we absolutely love feedback from our fans, and especially our international viewers. We would love to hear from you. So please send us your feedback and reactions, any thoughts that you have on the episode to our email, which is
tvsiblingspodcast@gmail.com.
So this episode was called Exit, episode 11, and even the scenes before the episode I think are quite revealing. The very first time Mr. Robot interacts with Elliot on the train, and he doesn't know who he is, he looks like a homeless guy on the train, he says, "Exciting time in the world right now." And Elliot just kind of looks at him like, okay. And we get a voiceover with White Rose saying, "Some believe there are alternate realities with other lives that we're leading." And then we see Mr. Robot ask, "How many copies of ourselves exist? And might our mental states be conjoined?" So those are the three notable quotes from the scenes that have happened before this episode. The episode starts with White Rose exiting her home in New York. The Dark Army essentially massacres the FBI who come to arrest her. And as she's walking out, she says to one of the dead FBI agents, or dying FBI agents, "Minister Zhang is dead. There's only White Rose." And she walks out. Very dramatic way.
It was epic. The way she said it, you could tell this is something she's been waiting for a while, to just kind of come out and say, "This is who I actually am," with so much confidence and bravado. Add to the list of very cool delivered lines by White Rose in a very epic fashion.
And I think the scene itself was very epic, where the way that we last see White Rose, I think Harini was even convinced that she was dead.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, there's no way she's escaping out of this. But the might of Dark Army, they just killed everyone who showed up. And it felt very Scarface to me, where there's this kind of massive shootout, this really, really epic scene.
Right.
But we see White Rose just walking away completely unscathed. Amazing scene. And then it cuts to Elliot, and it's a scene that we saw in the previous episode where it's a very tender moment between Darlene and Elliot. But we see a couple additional comments, and Elliot breaks down and just tells Darlene, "I've been through a lot, Darlene, and thank you for never giving up on me." Just beautiful, beautiful moment between the two siblings. And, you know, he basically says, "I have to go to Washington Township." And then it's a scene between Mr. Robot and Elliot, where Mr. Robot is saying, "What's your plan now? What are you going to do when you head to Washington Township?" And Elliot says, "Well, I'm going to basically infect the project with malware so that it can never start running." And I love this scene so much. Mr. Robot's like, "It would take you forever to build this malware. You've written up it already, haven't you?" And Elliot's like, "It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that hard to do."
Yeah, he said he used the same rootkit that he used to hack into Evil Corp, which was from, the first season, the first few episodes. It was the test that F Society gave Elliot to see if he can be part of their group, which at the time he obviously didn't know that he started that group.
And this is where I agree a little bit with Mr. Robot. He's like, you go down this path, it'll never stop. There'll always be someone else, something else to chase. We're done. And Elliot says, "No, like, don't you get it? Like, this is where it all started. This is really important to me." And this is when Magda and little Elliot kind of show up in the background. And Elliot's like, "You should stay with them. I'm going to do this on my own."
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really know what Elliot meant by this all started with White Rose, or this all started with the Washington Township plant. Because, it seems like it's been a moving target as opposed to why he's doing things. But he seemed even more impassioned this time. So I didn't really understand that.
I agree with that. I don't quite agree with Elliot. No, like initially it was taking down E Corp. Initially it was taking kind of redistributing the wealth. They've done all of that, and Darlene seems very satisfied. She's like, I'm done. Like, we achieved it. We did what we set out to do, and it's a happy ending. But Elliot still hasn't quite let go yet. And I think you're right. I think he's it's not quite true that it all started here. I think now it's become the target, and now it's evolved to become the thing that he's chasing. But it did not all start here.
Unless there's something he saw in the files that made him think, okay, this is the cause of many of my problems or issues I have. I don't know. We don't know yet.
That's actually fascinating. We don't get very much of what was in those files this episode. Just kind of, I think, insight for Elliot to how to take it down and how to disrupt it. Then Elliot takes the bus to the plant, which is kind of funny seeing him on the bus. And he takes the bus to the Washington Township nuclear power plant. And it's an interesting scene. When he gets there, cars are kind of rushing away, running red lights to get away from the place. And the office is in complete disarray. There's boxes everywhere, things knocked down. Elliot finds a computer and installs the malware, and that's when he notices like a dead body on the ground, and that's when Dark Army shows up. And Elliot gets taken to White Rose. While they're kind of walking to that room, he's seeing all the murdered people at the nuclear township plant. And he gets brought to this hallway and this door. And I believe, it's hard to see, I think intentionally, but I believe it's 11:16 on the clock on the wall. And that's important for later on. Elliot enters the room, and it's very similar to the room where Angela was brought to in the prior season and where she met with White Rose. QWERTY's there. His computer growing up is there, or at least the same model. Leo Tolstoy's Resurrection book is there. And we find out later on that this is a book that Edward Alderson used to read. And we see a poster on the wall that says, "When a door closes, a window opens." And pretty soon after Elliot gets acquainted with the room, White Rose walks in. And he's like, "This isn't going to work on me. Your brainwashing's not going to work on me." And White Rose kind of laughs, and she's like, "This was never about brainwashing. This procedure is about helping you come to an understanding," which I think is fascinating. Then White Rose opens up and says, "I was born differently than who I was supposed to be, and it led to a lot of pain and suffering. And frankly, I'm tired of this world, and I want to create a new one." And this is when Elliot calls her out and says, "You don't want to help people, you want to destroy this world." And I 100% agree with White Rose in this sentiment. She's like, "No, admit it. Your anthem has always been about hatred, not my anthem. Everything I've done is about love, and, you're the one that hates everything and everyone. Think about the name of your group, F Society." And Elliot agrees, and he opens up and says he was hurt by the people that he trusted the most. And that's hard to hear. Obviously, to a huge degree, he's talking about his father and what happened there. He tells her that, as much as he's tried to hate everyone and everything, there are people that refuse to be hated, who love Elliot despite everything. And they love him even when he can't love himself.
Yeah.
We've talked about this, so many times throughout this last season that we really feel like this whole season has been about Elliot's healing.
Yep.
And he mentions that. This love that people show him unconditionally is healing him. And he's not ready to give up on this world. And this is when White Rose tells him, "Okay, you get to decide what happens next." And then she fucking shoots herself out of fucking nowhere. That was crazy. She opens up the box and shoots herself. And that's when alarms start blaring. And Mr. Robot starts freaking out because he realizes that the machine has started. And, whatever is happening is going to happen.
Yeah, a couple of details there. before White Rose shoots herself, she says to Elliot, "I'm going to show you what I showed Angela."
Great point. Yeah.
And he's kind of confused. Ellie's kind of confused by what she means by that. And that's when she talks about, "I'm going to give you a choice." And then she shoots herself. So my first thought was like, did she shoot herself in front of Angela and then come back to life? Like, what did that mean? We can talk about it, but I don't really know what she meant by saying, "I'm going to show you what I showed Angela." Maybe it's the part we're going to talk about where she also gets transported to another world. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing too. Another detail that I didn't mention earlier is she says, "All I ever wanted was for you to believe."
She says, all I ever wanted was your belief. That's all she's ever wanted.
Yeah.
And I think another detail is really cool. He specifically tells Mr. Robot, "Do not come." It's like, "I'm going to do this on my own." But then when White Rose shoots herself and there's clearly a countdown happening and he's freaking out, he's like, "I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do." You hear Mr. Robot's voice. He says, "We have to figure out the code for this door." And it's a shocking moment because you're like, oh shit, he's not alone. And Elliot seems so grateful that Mr. Robot's there. And it was like never a question. Mr. Robot was going to go with him no matter what. And I love that. And yeah, I think they figure out the code, which was interesting because the code was 050959. That can't be a coincidence. Or maybe it's more of like a kind of a wink to Elliot for him to figure out easily, almost a little bit too easily. I mean, they gave the code in the phone. It's almost like, here, you can leave whenever you want.
And yeah, I think we see those numbers over and over again. 59 and 1116. And so, yes, he gets the code 0509 and Mr. Robot quickly enters it and it opens the door. And so they have the opportunity to leave. But Elliot really wants to stop this machine. And so he flips through the Leo Tolstoy book, Resurrection, and he finds a little piece of paper that says exit with the X capitalized. And he realizes, okay, like maybe I have to play a game on the computer. So he quickly opens the computer and he starts the game. And the first time he plays, it's asking him a series of questions. He leaves the tunnel, leaving his friend behind. And ultimately, the game ends with it saying, "Congratulations, you're heading to a new world," which I think is awesome. Awesome in so many ways. But Elliot realizes, no, like, I didn't play this right. Like, I have to play this game again.
Well, he says a few things that are interesting. He says what you're saying. I must be missing something. And he also says, White Rose wanted me to win. And so then that's when he jumps back into the game. So I think those two phrases are interesting. What does he mean by that? Want to win as in figure out how to get to whatever she showed Angela, get to this world that White Rose has been pushing for? I don't know. And so one other thing I forgot to mention, right before White Rose kills herself, Elliot's pleading with her to not launch her program because it's going to cause a meltdown. And she says, yeah, that's why I wanted to move myself to the Congo, but this is all I have left. And Elliot keeps saying, your program will not work. The machine will not work. So I don't know if there's something important about that either. But
I don't know, though. In that scene, White Rose is very confident. She's like, oh, yeah, we caught your little exploit. Yeah. How do you think we found you?
Well, I thought I took it more as in the machine won't work because it does not have the resources it needed in the Congo.
No,
in order to stop the nuclear meltdown.
Well, so here's what I think. It's more that if the program had not already been running, Elliot's exploit would have worked perfectly. But because the program was already up and running, Elliot's program is actually meaningless. It actually has no impact.
Yeah, I still think there's a question about whether Washington Township has the correct resources to properly have the machine function the way it's supposed to.
So I think that it does not. And that's why the nuclear power plant has a meltdown.
Yeah.
But I think that the program is going to work just as it should. It's just going to kill a ton of people and have a nuclear explosion happen, very similar to Chernobyl, as a result. And so I think that White Rose was trying to prevent that from happening. But either way, she cared more about her machine working and having her enter this new world rather than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think then Elliot jumps back into playing the game the second time, and he makes some different choices this time around.
And so this time around, he chooses to stay with his friend in the dungeon. And it seems like the machine still goes off, that it's too late. Because we see kind of explosions happening. Mr. Robot opens the door and there's a fire. And they both sit down, kind of resigned to the fact that they couldn't stop what's happening. Elliot tells Mr. Robot he loves him. And Mr. Robot says, I love you too. This is when Elliot, in a very cyclical way, tells Mr. Robot it's an exciting time in the world.
Yeah, this whole scene, after that, the whole room fades to red, and there's like a massive explosion, or at least the sounds of a massive explosion. And it looks like that they're dead or they disappear. But this entire scene had some insanely similar Lost vibes to, and spoilers if you haven't seen Lost, but season 2 of Lost, where Desmond and Locke are debating whether they should push the button, and there's red flashing lights everywhere. There's hieroglyphics being flipped on the counter above, everything's shaking, and it felt so much like that. So much panic and chaos happening all at once. But in the middle of that, seeing Elliot and Mr. Robot was more resigned to the fact, like, holy shit, we're going to die. While Elliot was a little more serene and calm about it. Yeah, you mentioned before how when Elliot was kind of saying to White Rose, I'm not like you because I have people who care about me despite how I've treated them, and that they love him despite him not being able to love himself. Obviously, the first one you think about is Darlene, just because earlier in the episode, he told her, thanks for not giving up on me. You know, and that's like throughout his life, right? That's not
Absolutely.
just recently.
Yeah.
Then there's Wellick. Wellick loved Elliot and wanted to just do whatever he could to help Elliot and just be around him. And that impacted Elliot when he saw, Wellick sacrificing himself, basically, for Elliot, again, and his sister. And then obviously the one that's been the most important constant for Elliot, especially lately, is Mr. Robot, right? They finally have started to work together, and they're finally in sync. They're finally transparent with each other. And he really did mean that, what he said to him when he said, I love you. I don't know what form or relationship you could define it as. In a way, he said it before, it's the father that he should have had. But I think it's also his best friend in a lot of ways. The closest friend, the one who knows him the best out of everyone.
Definitely, and is always, always there for him, no matter what, and has his back. It's really an amazing scene. And as I'm thinking about this and talking about this a little bit more, I'll come back to this at the end after we finish the recap. But I actually think that Elliot's choice in the exit game does have ramifications for what happens later on.
Yeah, the choice he makes, there's two choices, basically, in the most simplistic form. You leave your friend or you stay with your friend. And he struggles to type in stay and press enter. He's even emotional about it. And I have always been curious about that. Why was he so emotional? But I do agree. I think there is some impact to him making that decision. I think it's a psychological test in a lot of ways. And yeah, he did shut down, I guess, at least the warning lights and everything, but it seemed like it was too late to shut down the reactor, at least on the surface.
I don't know, though. We'll come back to that again.
Yeah,
I'm developing a theory as we speak.
I always thought it might be fake, like everything was fake, but at the same time, there's cops outside, so I don't know how far you can make it fake and just to trick Elliot.
Well, so here's the thing. I guess we can just talk about it now.
Yeah.
I think that White Rose 100% entered this machine. She submitted herself. She obviously killed herself in this world. And I don't actually think that that's what happened with Angela back in the day. I think that White Rose potentially allowed Angela to experience the machine and convinced her that, hey, there's very real feeling, at least, reality can be yours, and you can have everything that you want, and help me achieve this goal where everyone, to a certain degree, has their ideal world at their fingertips. They can be who they want. They can have the people around them who they want. And for Angela, what was so, so important to her, which defined her whole life, was the death of her mother that she just felt was so unfair and not the way that she wanted to live. And so, so important to her. She saw this reality where her mom was still alive and wanted that so badly, which is why she kind of submitted herself to White Rose. So I don't think that White Rose shot herself previously. I think that this time around she did shoot herself and White Rose is dead in this world. And I think she entered this alternate reality. However, my theory is that Elliot, by playing that game and making those choices, just like you said, made the decision to stay with his friend in this trapped dungeon and valued relationships and friendships more than the opportunity of a different world. And by making that choice, decided for himself not to enter this reality.
That's interesting.
And so I think that he did stop the machine for himself, but not for anyone else. And because I don't think that...
okay, let's talk about the final scene, because then we're going to have to tie that into the very, very final scene and how your theory works out.
I'll just say one more thing. I just think that White Rose saying she's giving him a choice is not bullshit.
Yeah, I don't... Yeah, I agree with you. But I think you're saying it's exclusively a choice for Elliot and how it impacts Elliot. She made it sound like I'm giving you a choice for everyone. Because he asks her, you're not giving the people a choice. And she says, I am giving them a choice. I'm giving you the choice. Because he says earlier, I am speaking for the people.
Possibly, but I don't see why White Rose would risk her ability to enter the machine and achieve her dream.
I don't think she entered the machine personally. I think she's dead.
Okay.
I think she's done.
Okay.
And she was willing to take that risk at that point.
Okay, so we can come back to it. But essentially the scene cuts out to a completely red scene and we see Elliot waking up and he's a completely different person. He's very positive and energetic. He's dancing in the shower. But before we get there, we see him looking at his phone.
Yep.
And it's May 9th, 11:16 a.m.
Again, the 11:16 time we've seen throughout the show. May 9th, 2015, the day of the hack, 5/9 hack. So, okay, something's fishy is going on.
Important dates again. And it's kind of strange that Elliot's waking up, has his wake-up call at 11:16 a.m. That's a little bit late for Elliot to be waking up, even if he had to stay up all night working on a project.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. They do kind of explain why he would be waking up so late. But yeah. So yeah, he's taking a shower, and then there's randomly an earthquake in New York City, which sparks a call that he gets, a Skype call from Angela. And there's this little detail here. I don't know if it means anything. Maybe it's just going with the nerves of, we'll get to with the situation. But he hesitates to answer the call initially. He almost he looks a little nervous, and then he puts on this smile. I was wondering, is he excited or nervous, or it's more like, hey, I have to look this way? Because at the end of the call, he goes back to how he was looking before. So it was a little odd. But anyways, he has a conversation with Angela, and she basically was like, was that an earthquake? And, they talk about that. And we get some details here where she says, you haven't packed yet, and that they're getting married the next day. So he's clearly going to move in with her, or they're going to move into a place together, and they're getting married the next day. So 5/10, the day after the hack in our world. And while he's talking to her, he gets a message from his dad saying, hey, there's a lot of traffic, you're heading to work soon. And like you mentioned, Elliot had already, when he woke up, it was 11:16. He went to take a shower, brushed his teeth, shaved, answered this call, and the timestamp on the message he got from his dad was 11:16. So at least 30 minutes has passed by. It should not be 11:16, yet it was.
And at the time of the FaceTime call with Angela, it's 11:16 on his computer too.
Yeah.
So literally no time has elapsed, and that doesn't really make any sense. It's kind of fishy once again.
Yep. And one other thing, he wakes up, and when he's in the shower and shaving, he has his headache. Pointing to he's rubbing his temple. He takes some Advil, and even when I think after the call with Angela, the headache hits him again. And so that's something for us to keep an eye on, because it happens throughout the episode where he has moments where he's just his headache is just killing him. That cannot be a coincidence.
And Elliot calls his dad, and it's obvious from their conversation that they're very close.
Yeah.
He's kind of confiding to him about, his nerves about the big day tomorrow. presenting Angela with this very personal present, all of those things, and clearly very different than our world. And Elliot's like, what the hell, Dad? Like, you haven't been picking up your cell phone. And he's like, I don't know where that thingamajig is. And after they hang up, Edward Alderson walks out into the front area of his shop, Mr. Robot, and he sees his cell phone on the ground, which is kind of weird. It's like, why was his cell phone on the ground? Completely cracked screen. And when he looks at the time on his cracked cell phone, it also says 11:16 a.m.
Yeah, and an odd detail, he initially goes out there only because he thought he heard a customer and someone left. You can hear the door closing as soon as he steps in, which is odd. And yeah, he sees the phone. And the picture on the background screen is the same picture that we see Elliot have in his room, but Darlene is not in the picture, which we will get a little bit more information about in a bit.
And Elliot rolls into work, and there's a newscast going on in the background, and it's a 5.9 tremor earthquake. And interestingly, the newscast says that the earthquake occurred at 7:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Different than the time that we had thought.
Yeah, and so this might line up with what you were saying, in that it's odd for Elliot to wake up at 11. Maybe he did wake up around 7, and after showering it was 7:30, and that's when the earthquake happened. And his phone, for some reason, just says 11:16.
Elliot's talking to, what's his name, Lloyd?
I think so, yeah.
And Elliot accidentally says E Corp, not F Corp, which is completely strange. Why would he get that idea in this new world? And Ollie comes by, says a few ridiculous things. And
B-Mock.
Big man on campus.
Yeah, one other thing. Lloyd mentions this, Angela mentions this, and then later when he's having lunch with his dad, all three of them say, Elliot, are you okay? You seem a little different. And he keeps saying, I don't know, I'm feeling off today, or this migraine. He seems different to those people.
That's interesting, yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, there's got to be something there, too.
There's got to be something there. In the background, we see on the TV another newscast saying that White Rose, she's the richest person in the world, and she has a White Rose Foundation and just donated $4.6 billion, which is quite a lot of money. And it's interesting, in this world, the Deus Group is actually a really positive force in the world.
Yeah, they were called Deus Giving.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also sees like a weird F Corp commercial that flashes E Corp for a second, and it kind of trips him up.
And I've always thought this. I don't think White Rose is a bad person. I actually do think that she just wants everyone to be happy. Obviously, she's selfish, and she's willing to kill a bunch of people and do a bunch of corrupt things to ultimately achieve her goal and end up in this world where she can be herself. But I think at the end of the day, her motivations are pure. She really does just want everyone to have the chance to be happy and be themselves.
I disagree. I think she wants to change the world for her. She hates this world because of how it treated her. She doesn't really care about everyone. She cares about creating a world that suits her the best. And in her mind, that would be the best world for the majority of the people, in her opinion. So
I don't know. I think Sam Esmail likes to play with this idea of an antagonist that you sympathize with.
Yeah, she's a complicated character. She's not a full-on villain, for sure.
Correct. Exactly.
It's not black and white with her.
I guess that's my point, where she thinks, and I don't disagree, if I could create a world where everyone is happy, why not go to that? And Elliot's, kind of arguing with her in the beginning, saying, it's not fair. Some people like this world, and it's not fair to kind of take that away from them and create this world that you want. But I guess I kind of see her point of view in a way, which is interesting. I think that's ultimately Sam Esmail's intention.
Yeah, I think so too. The next scene was really interesting because the reason he was talking to Lloyd is to get prepared for a presentation to F Corp, who are coming in. They're trying to land them as a client because, as we learned, Elliot is actually the CEO of Allstate. So he founded this company. He's a young, hip tech entrepreneur.
Hip.
And the CEO of F Corp is Tyrell Wellick, who looks a lot more like Elliot. He's not wearing all black, but there's something that Wellick said in the episode where he died, where he always loved how Elliot, or was jealous of him in a way that he doesn't care how people view him and what he looks like. And he talks about how he just wears, the same black hoodie. And I think this is Wellick's ideal version of himself. Correct. Someone who doesn't care about what other people think and just wears what he wants, comfortable. He's not wearing a $1,000 suit to like project his power. He doesn't need to. And the meeting is odd because Elliot finishes his presentation and Wellick asks to talk to Elliot privately. And he expresses concern saying, I don't think this is the right company for me, for my company, because, I just don't think we're a good fit. And then he asks Elliot a question. What's the worst thing in your life right now? And Elliot jokes saying, you passing on us so quickly. And then Wellick is very serious, says, no, really tell me. And so Elliot says something very interesting. He said, the worst thing in my life is the best thing. I have a very routine and cyclical and maybe even mundane life. And I often imagine a more exciting life, a life where I take risks. But I also know what I have is good and good for me. And I should be grateful. And Wellick resonates with this, saying, it's the same for me. I created this company that's also the best and worst thing for me because it's the best thing because it provides so much value for the people and everyone benefits from that. But it could easily turn on those people and be the worst thing for everyone. And that's when Elliot kind of assures Wellick, saying, hey, my company will take care of you. It'll be okay. And he says something that really sets Wellick off. He says, I've seen the worst that could happen to your company and I know how to prevent it. And Wellick takes this very literally. He says, you've seen it? What do you mean you've seen it? And Elliot's like, yeah, we have projections, different models. You should take a look at the report. And he says, no. What do you mean by that? And he says, I need to know that you're on my side. And Elliot says, always. This felt a little Mr. Robot-ish in how Mr. Robot always says to Elliot, I'm always with you. I'm always on your side. And Wellick was very different. He seemed a lot like our Wellick. But I don't know if he remembered stuff or he felt a connection with Elliot, but he was very emphatic that Elliot says, you're with me. We're together on Definitely. This, that we trust each other.
Yeah.
It was very strange seeing.
I agree with that interpretation 100%, where I feel like this Wellick was also struggling by the fact that this world seemed too good to be true.
Yeah.
And it was really, really interesting to see, just a really, really well-written scene. And I always thought it was strange in the episode where we see Wellick die that he was talking about all this stuff. I don't know. I didn't really enjoy that episode all that much, and it seemed kind of random for him to talk about how he likes to dress and things like that. But now it makes perfect sense that we got that little piece of information about how he truly felt about himself, why he dresses the way he does to kind of put up a front for the world, and how he wishes he didn't have to do that, where he wishes that he could truly be comfortable with himself. And we see that play out now, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the next scene is where Elliot meets up with his dad for lunch to celebrate. And, they're having beers and Elliot's still a little bit off. And then he asks his dad, did you bring the gift? And it's the surprise gift for Angela. It's the first edition of the book that Angela loved as a child. I can't remember the name right now, but it's signed and everything. And so Elliot's super happy. He's like, I got to drop this off at Angela's apartment to surprise her. And he's like, oh, wait, her parents are there. Let me call and make sure it's okay. And he tries to call Angela's mom. I believe he hears her. He says, Emily. And then I guess she hangs up on him. He says, that's really weird. She hung up on me. So that's an odd detail. I'm not sure what that means, but it's very odd. And the rest of the lunch is more like showing us how great of a relationship he has with his dad. His dad seems like a very positive person. He's really excited that his son's getting married to Angela. And another odd detail that happens in the scene is Elliot doesn't have his wallet. He does, and he's like, oh, that's strange. I must have left it at home. And his dad says, that's odd. You never would do something like that. And his dad gives him some money and says, why don't you buy some flowers for Angela? In the next scene, we see Elliot heading to Angela's apartment. And he's on the phone with her saying, hey, you're not coming home anytime soon. And he's acting very suspicious. And in this scene, while he's talking to Angela, Angela drops a line that is huge when she says, God, you're such an only child. And that's a big thing because we didn't see the picture of Darlene before, but now we know with certainty Darlene does not exist in this world. And we'll come back to that once we're done talking about the recap, but that has to be huge. Goes into the apartment while he's talking to her, and they have like a really nice conversation basically about how, they're both excited about the wedding tomorrow. Leaves a gift, and as he's opening the trash can, he notices a bunch of bloody tissues and a broken glass. And he makes a comment about how Angela's dad likes to drink a lot. Any comments on that scene before we go to the final scene?
I was just thinking more about the scene between Tyrell and Elliot. And so just going back a little bit, Elliot says, I've dreamed about being someone with a more exciting life. And I think that's really big. I think that it kind of shows the difference between our Elliot and this Elliot, where they have completely different lives, where Elliot's life, our Elliot, couldn't have a crazier, more dramatic life with his friends being murdered left and right, this whole conspiracy, being afraid for his life, hunting down these bad guys, doing all this crazy stuff. But he's lonely, and he doesn't have what normal, usual people have with fulfilling relationships, a comfortable job, a nice apartment, all these other things. And so we'll come back to that later on. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting he framed it that way.
Yeah, and then, let's talk about that when we get back to it, because I have something to say on that too, and I kind of agree with the path you're going on.
It was strange to see broken glass in the trash.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh shit, like, did someone like just kill themselves just now?
There's something odd with Angela's parents. His mom hung up on him, the dad breaking glass and is drunk or something, or drinks a lot. There's something very odd about the parents going on.
And it was jarring to see the bloody tissue in the trash for sure.
Yeah. And so in the final scene, Elliot is taking a taxi back home, and the taxi driver mentions something. He's like, hey, is the music too loud? Is the radio okay? And he says, actually, can you turn it up? And he just looks so happy with, I think it's an OK Go song in the background, and he's enjoying living in the city. Like, this is a perfect day for him, and it's going to be another perfect day tomorrow as he gets married to Angela. And we've never seen Elliot like that, ever. And I don't know if there's anything with the lyrics, but in part of the lyrics, when he turns up the volume, it said the singers say, sometimes it feels so good that it has to be bad. So I don't know if that's anything, but Elliot's just basically almost like skipping all the way home, gets to his door. He has a mat that says, hi, I'm Matt. Totally not Elliot at all. And the music stops as soon as he enters his apartment, and he turns around, turns the light on, and he stops. And he looks a little shocked, and he says, who are you? And we see our Elliot, Hoodie Elliot, at the computer searching something, slowly getting up, looking equally confused, shocked, maybe even scared, as he slowly walks towards this other Elliot, and the scene cuts out.
That was so nuts.
Yeah, that was crazy. Just like you could feel like your pit of your stomach drop, especially with the music.
The music was
change.
Perfect.
The music was fantastic throughout this entire episode, whether it was the songs they chose or the score by, the composer. It was amazing.
The music during the credits too. Oh my God, it was just set the tone perfectly for like, what the fuck is going on?
Swetha had a very unique reaction to the end of the episode.
My mind was blown. I was just not expecting that at all. And it was so well done that it was just so freaky to see. The best example of something similar was this not very popular movie called Enemy.
I wouldn't say it wasn't popular, but it's more of an indie film.
An indie film, just like something that not a lot of people have seen. But it's a movie with this guy who
Jake Gyllenhaal
comes in contact with one of his doppelgangers. Is it?
Yeah. So basically, someone tells him, "Hey, I watched this film and there's a guy in it who looks just like you."
Oh yeah, that's right.
And so he rents the film, and the actor in it looks just like him.
Correct.
And so he becomes obsessed, and he tries to reach out to him, and the guy just like hangs up on him every time. Finally has to go physically see him in person, and I don't want to say more beyond that. It's actually a good movie worth watching. It's a super fucking trippy movie, but definitely you should check it out. But yeah, I agree. That scene was very similar to a variety of scenes from Enemy.
It just had this weird vibe of like, what's going on? Have you stolen my life? What am I supposed to do? And it was kind of a crazy moment for our Elliot, because it's like, oh shit, there's like someone else with my life here, you know?
Well,
where do I fit in? All of that.
I think we all had the idea that in this new world, this was our Elliot, and he just
Correct.
didn't remember.
Definitely.
To see a second Elliot, that I was not expecting that. I didn't think. It was such a left turn. It didn't even enter my mind. I just assumed our Elliot just was eventually going to remember, like he entered this new world, and his mind was erased, and that's why he was getting headaches. He was slowly remembering stuff. That's why he was glitching when we saw F Corp and E Corp. But that was not true. Yeah, so let's talk about our theories. Like, what's happening? There was like a lot of stuff to unpack here.
Definitely. Yeah, so going back to what I was saying before with Elliot making that choice in the exit game to stay and not to leave and enter this new world. I think White Rose gave him the opportunity to stay in this world. And so I think this whole last scene where we see a whole different version of Elliot with a completely different life, a great relationship with his dad. Angela's still alive. They're getting married. He's really happy, all this stuff. It's this boring version of his life that Elliot could imagine as like an ideal version of his life. But I actually don't think he's entered an alternate reality or a parallel universe or a simulation or anything like that. I think that potentially he just got knocked out when the nuclear reactor, went off or the machine got started. And this is him imagining, okay, what could that life look like? What would that look like if I had all these different things that in some ways I've always wanted? And I think he sees, okay, that Elliot is really happy, but he also sees that Elliot craves something more exciting in his life too. And so it's kind of like a flip or a twist on the grass is always greener to, no, like my life is pretty good too. And I have good things going on in my life. I don't quite understand that last scene still. I don't see why there would be this confrontation with himself. I don't see if that was all in his mind, why that would happen. And I don't think this happy version of himself is the other one. I don't think so.
Yeah, I kind of agree with your theory. I have a lot of thoughts on this, different theories. I'm not sure. I'll first talk about what I don't think it is. I do not think this is a parallel universe. I don't think he traveled to. I don't think this is Fringe. The reason for that is all the oddities in the date. Does that mean time travel to the past? Why are the clocks all the same? Why are there so many red herrings to 5.9, the 5.9 earthquake?
I agree with that. I think that's one of the biggest clues that there's something really off about this world. Time is not moving as it should, and there's something kind of stuck on 5.9 and 11.16 where
it could be a Groundhog's Day type thing too, where he keeps repeating the same day. Maybe that's the part of the simulation. Maybe this is just a glimpse of the simulation for Elliot of what it could be. But yeah, I don't think it's a Fringe type thing. I think this world is not real. Whether that's an artificial world, I think it could be. I think this could be a virtual artificial world, and his mind jacked in or something. I also think the first thought I had was, what if that world is the real world in a way, and that's the actual Elliot, and his Mr. Robot is the hoodie Elliot. When he talks about imagining a more exciting world, what if he imagined the whole Mr. Robot world that we've been seeing? The more I think about it, I think it might be the other way. I actually do think this nicer Elliot could be the fourth personality. I think maybe it's the one he wants to be, the idealized version of him. I would preface with all these theories, I think we're all 100% wrong. I think Sam Esmail has some kind of, option D solution that we haven't even thought of. Because the one thing that I cannot resolve is Darlene. If this is supposed to be the idealized world for every person, this is who Elliot's always secretly wanted to be. This is who Wellick's always wanted to be. This is the lives that they've wanted. Why would Darlene be cut out? That is not what Elliot would want. And I think that's what's going to break things in the next episode. Because once our Elliot finds out Darlene does not exist, that would be a serious problem for him. And I wonder if that relates to what Mr. Robot said in saying Darlene is the key. I wonder if Mr. Robot is somehow has knowledge about this world. And that would make sense if it's in his head. I don't know if he got knocked out, but I mean, that would be, I don't know. because the reason I don't like that he's knocked out, and maybe this hurts the in his head theory, is the fact that White Rose said, I'm going to show you what I showed Angela. So it seems like this is all intentional where he was going. It seems like this is what White Rose wanted, and that she showed something similar to Angela. And so that's when I have a hard time believing it was just a coincidence that Elliot got hit in the head during this situation, and then starts to think, oh, this is what my life could have been like, another world. And again, I just don't know why he would imagine not having Darlene. Why would you take out that element when they've come so far, become so close? Why not realize an idealized version of Darlene who's with Cisco and is happy, right? That is a huge glaring hole, and has to be the biggest clue about why this world is wrong and flawed.
Well, I think that gets to what Mr. Robot said, that Darlene is the key. I think Darlene's going to be the thing that makes Elliot realizes this world isn't real. It's not what I want. And I want my life back with Darlene in it. And I think that that's the way that Darlene relates to all of this.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. You're talking about Hoodie Elliot, right?
Our Elliot.
I think he knows this world is not real. I think he also knows that he doesn't want to be there. He never wanted to go to another world. He just ended up there. How he ended up there, we don't know. But I think now his goal is, how do I get back? I think that's his number one goal. I think him seeing the other Elliot was more confusion than anything else.
Correct.
Let's talk about that. How could there be two Elliots? Because if White Rose's plan was to go the way she wanted, she made it sound like you yourself get to exist in a world that's meant for you. Not that there would be a version of you that's living happy. She never said anything like that, right? At least that's not how we interpreted it. So yeah, I'm not sure how to resolve that there's two Elliots. I feel like this is a facsimile of Elliot. I don't feel like it's a fully... Something about him's missing. Something about him's off. And yeah, I also really, really want to know what Elliot was searching for. We tried very hard to screen cap it and freeze it, but we couldn't see it. I thought I saw a 5'9" mask in the bottom left. There was like a large image of someone.
Oh, really?
There was it looked like a white face and a black cloak. And I thought it was like the 5'9" mask, but I don't know. And why go back to 5'9"?
It's possible that Ellie's just trying to learn about this world when he's Googling.
But what would be the first thing you Google?
Well, that's the thing. 5'9" was obviously a crazy day in Elliot's life, in Elliot's world. He's probably curious, what the hell is going on in this world on 5'9"? Or, the days leading up to it, that kind of thing, you know? And I think he's probably trying to get clues about what this life is like. And that's going to help him realize, okay, this is very different than the world I come from.
Is Elliot dead?
No, I don't think so.
And when the room flashed red, did Elliot immediately go to this world?
That's where it's impossible to know, right?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is Mr. Esmail likes to play with editing and timing. Could Elliot have gone later? Do we see him walk out of the plant and do some other stuff and then end up here? Or was it immediate? I'm not sure. If you were Elliot, what would be the first thing you would do? You see this other Elliot. You've been searching about this world. Obviously, you're going to ask him questions. Do you think he's real? Do you leave? Do you try to find Darlene? Who do you talk to? What information do you seek out?
I think it's nuts. I mean, I think it's so difficult to know what you would do in that situation. Such a crazy situation. I think that this other Elliot obviously looks friendly enough that you'd try to get information about it. And I think he's going to quickly realize that Angela's alive in this world, and holy shit, they're getting married tomorrow. Wait, what? You don't have a sister? All of that. So
why no Darlene? That really bothers me. Why no Darlene? Why is he an only child?
We don't see Magda at all in this other world, too.
It's true. That's true. He has a picture of her on his background, so...
Magda?
Yeah, Edward Alderson. So at the minimum, they have, or had, a good relationship.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think all of these discrepancies between the two worlds are really important. It's just we don't know enough. I think everything else beyond what we just talked about, beyond our theories, is all speculation as to what's going to happen next and how does Elliot get back.
If he can get back. Wonder if he's stuck here, but yeah.
I think we're fairly convinced with time not working the way that it should.
Yeah.
that this is not some parallel universe or this other physical location that Elliot's in. I think we're fairly convinced of that. He's either in a simulation or he's in his head. And I think he will be able to figure out how to get back out of it. And it's possible that he's dead, but I personally just don't think he's dead. And I think that Darlene did not go to Hungary for a very particular reason. I think we're going to see her in the finale. And I think that there's going to be some closure for both of their characters.
Yeah, I think anything's in play. I mean, Harney's theory that Darlene doesn't exist ever could still be in play. And I mean, that would mean the entire world of Mr. Robot, Elliot, fabricated.
See, I don't think so. I don't think that the show is going to go down the route that everything we've seen so far with our Black Hoodie Elliot has been a dream or fabrication.
I think you have to have your mind open to the possibility.
I would not like that.
I know you wouldn't
though.
like it.
I would not like that.
Not liking it is one thing. Whether it happens...
No, I would not like that. And I think that what is more plausible is that everything that we saw in that last 15 minutes is what could have been. And I think it's going to go back to Elliot healing and becoming a whole person.
Oh, yeah. That's how it should end. Yeah, yeah. So any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
I don't know what role Mr. Robot is going to have in the finale. That's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I'm just as curious to see Elliot's reaction to this world as much as I am to see Mr. Robot's. I would love to hear his explanation of what's happening.
I mean, I think it's going to be a crazy finale because I do think we're going to get that boardroom scene with Magda and little Elliot. And wow, they have a lot to cover in the last episode, but I think it's going to be great.
I think it's going to be great too. It's bittersweet. We have 2 hours left and it's the end of Mr. Robot. Only probably one or two more podcasts left for us and then we're moving on. And I don't know, it's like we're losing a friend a little bit.
And I just love how many risks Sam Esmail has taken. And no matter how much we think we have the show figured out, something crazy like this happens. And you're like, what the hell is that? That's like, I don't know. It's like so crazy. It's amazing. It's been an amazing, amazing ride. And I can't wait to see how it ends.
Exactly, Swayth. I couldn't say it better myself. It's just so exciting. And it's, I don't know, I feel privileged to watch this. It feels like it's great art that's happening. We're witnessing this guy who's an amazing, imaginative writer, just come up with these crazy ideas. And he has free reign to explore. And that's really exciting to see. And now he gets to conclude the story the way he wants to and the way he's always intended. And I'm really looking forward to and excited to see what happens next.
I just had a really sad thought.
Yeah.
Just to kind
Ruin things.
Yeah, actually. Do you think it's kind of sad that White Rose did all of this almost for a dream? Do you think it was out of almost deep depression and hatred of this world that she created this and did all of this for this? I just can't imagine doing the same thing. You know what I mean?
Sam Esmail has talked about this before. He said when they asked him, about the multiple worlds, multiple, parallel Earths or whatever, he said, I think we live in a society where there's incredibly rich people who can use their money towards technology that could be beneficial for them. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he says. And so to answer your question, when you have someone, when you say depressed, I say more psychotic and has that amount of money to basically do whatever they want, why not pursue a singular goal that you care about?
That's true, huh?
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. This is Sid.
This is Swetha.
And like Swetha was saying, please email us if you have any thoughts at tvsibblingspodcast@gmail.com.
We'd love to hear from you.
We'd love to hear it. Just one more podcast left, guys. 2 more hours. Can't wait to talk to you guys about it.
Well, we might do a reaction podcast with our friends, Bam Bam and stuff.
And Mark and Mylene. And maybe my sister when she comes back from wherever she is.
Yes, we're definitely going to we'll probably end up doing 2 more podcasts.
At the minimum, yeah.
And yes, we have to hear Harney's thoughts on this crazy twist.
Yeah. All right, thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
Bye.